The church basement was completely empty, stacked high with dusty folding chairs and old storage boxes. For months, everyone in the community had been talking about how badly the local kids needed a safe place to go after school. At every meeting, people agreed it was a beautiful idea, but the conversation always stalled out the same way. They said they needed to wait for a formal committee, a major grant, or a perfect 60-page manual before anyone touched a single thing. She understood the logic, but she also looked out the window and saw those exact kids walking home with nowhere to go right now. They didn't have time to wait for a 5-year plan. So, on a Tuesday afternoon, without a team, a big budget, or a flawless blueprint, she went down and unlocked the basement door herself. She pulled out a few dust-covered tables, set up a row of chairs, and bought a couple of boxes of snacks with her own money. It wasn't a polished, official program yet. It was just a starting point. Talking point. She saw something that needed fixing right now, while the rest of the room was okay with just talking about it. Have you ever felt the friction of knowing what must be done, while everyone else around you is waiting for permission? For the first couple of weeks, it was exhausting. She'd sit there by herself before the kids arrived, just staring at the empty chairs and wondering if she had made a huge mistake. She didn't have all the answers, and it felt incredibly heavy, being the only one holding the door open while everyone else watched, from a safe distance. One night, sitting at her kitchen table completely wiped out, she started searching online for answers, trying to figure out why trying to do the right thing was leaving her feeling so isolated and lonely. She wasn't trying to launch something huge or perfect on day one. She was just willing to unfold a few tables and chairs. In your own life, do you find it harder to map out a project perfectly, or to be the one who actually rolls up their sleeves and opens the first box when no one else will step forward? That was the moment she stumbled across an article from FaithFlow Rooted Ministry. As she began reading through what they wrote about leadership, it didn't feel like just another online quiz, article, or generic self-help resource. It felt like someone had been quietly watching her in that empty basement and finally given her a mirror to understand why she kept responding the way she did. One section stopped her in her tracks. It described the kind of person who sees a need early and moves forward before everything is fully approved, funded, or guaranteed. She thought about the heavy basement door in her hand that Tuesday afternoon, the chairs still against the wall, the kids walking home outside. She had spent weeks feeling guilty, wondering if she was just being reckless and impatient with the process. But reading those words, the meaning clicked. That afternoon hadn't been impatience at all. It had been courage, one of the leadership pathways. She was carrying responsibility exactly the way God had shaped her to be. But the article also offered a perspective she had been missing. She realized that while her instinct was to step forward first and create a beginning, it did not mean she had to carry the whole responsibility alone. Her role was to ignite the first spark. But growing as a leader meant learning how to invite others in, to carry what had begun. She thought about the parent who had eventually picked up a broom to sweep the floor, the volunteer who brought the handwritten sign-in sheet, and the neighbor who dropped off the food donations. That was the first time the work hadn't felt quite so lonely. It wasn't because someone praised her, but because someone finally joined her. Her yes to those kids required a quiet no to the endless waiting game. When a real need lands right in front of you, do you find yourself more worried about the risks of stepping out of line or the real-world consequences of doing absolutely nothing? With that realization, something shifted inside her. The next time a parent dropped off their teenager and noticed her setting up, instead of quietly handling it all herself, she smiled and asked them if they'd mind grabbing a broom to help clear the floor. She intentionally invited a volunteer who loved organization to take over the sign-in sheets and asked a neighbor to coordinate the weekly food donations. By understanding how she was made to lead, she stopped trying to hold on to all the responsibility alone. She learned how to set the first row of bricks, clear the path, and then trust the community to help carry the work forward. If you have ever felt the heavy weight of setting the first row of chairs while everyone else waits, you aren't failing. You are leading through courage. Your instinct is meant to start the work, but you were never meant to carry that burden alone. Visit FaithFlowRootedMinistry.org and start the free Leadership Pathway Discovery Tool. Know how you lead. FaithFlow Rooted Ministry. Equipping hearts grounded in faith and flowing with purpose. Thank you for listening to this FaithFlow short story. Take a moment to reflect. Where did this story meet you? What part felt familiar? And what might God be asking you to notice in your own life? For more faith-rooted stories, devotionals, and resources, visit FaithFlow Rooted Ministry. Equipping hearts grounded in faith, flowing with purpose.